Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from today. Welcome back to my channel, Let's Talk. Today's conversation is going to be about the death penalty. You can let me know in the comments section down below what your thoughts are on this topic, as I always want to hear from you and bounce some, perspectives at each other, okay? The death penalty is widely considered a violation of human rights, particularly the right to life and the right to be free of torture or cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment. Okay, so that alone sounds simple enough, right? But there's nothing simple about the death penalty. We're going to actually get into some information on the death penalty. Over time, there are methods that have been used in cases that involve the death penalty. Until the 1890s, hanging was the primary method used for the death penalty. Now, that might sound savage to some people, but, in certain instances, I guess it's debatable on whether or not it is humane or not to be hung until you're dead. Electrocution was a form of the death penalty, and New York built the first electric chair in 1888 and executed their first prisoner in 1890. The gas chamber in 1924 uses of cyanide gas was introduced as Nevada sought a more humane way of executing its condemned prisoners. G. John was the first person executed by lethal gas. Lethal injections. In 1977, Utah became the first state to adopt lethal injections, though it would not be until 1982 that Charles Brooks would become the first person put to death by lethal injection. The firing squad. On March 23rd in 2015, firing squad was reauthorized in Utah as a viable method of execution if and only if the state was unable to obtain the drugs. Was unable to obtain the drugs necessary to carry out lethal injection. Okay, so it seems like over time we have tried to find different methods involving the death penalty and ways of I guess the kindest way to put this is to put a prisoner down. Now, I'm going to give you 5 names, and then we're going to discuss this a little bit further in detail on why this is such a touchy subject for me personally. Carly Bruca. She was murdered at the age of 11 by Joseph Smith. He assaulted her and he murdered her. He was sentenced to death, and he was on death row for 13 years before he died of liver cancer. During that time period, his sentence had been overturned by the state. Now, I don't believe that's justice. An 11-year-old little girl was murdered, and her murderer got to live 13 years longer than she did. Rebecca Baptiste, age 10. This is an ongoing case right now, so the jury's out as far as the sentencing, and that would be for her father, Richard Baptiste, and his wife, if that's what you want to call her, Anissa Woods. The system failed that little girl. Rebecca had been failed over and over again by the people that were supposed to protect her and by our state here in Arizona. This little girl had been in and out of foster care. She had been abused severely. While the details are still out on her murder, I'm fairly certain that they're going to take a plea deal and there will be no justice for Rebecca Baptiste. Tia Sharp. Tia Sharp was murdered at the age of 12 by Stuart Hazel. Stuart Hazel was a repeat offender and he assaulted Tia Sharp. He received life in prison. And 30 years, he would be up for parole. I mean, he may never get out. But for them, life in prison is a 30-year sentence with the possibility of parole. That is not justice. Tia was 12 years old and she will never go to prom. She will never get married. I'm failing to see how that is justice. Sarah Payne. Sarah Payne was 8 years old when she was murdered by Ray Whiting. Ray Whiting was a registered pedophile, and he was assessed by a psychiatrist that he was a high risk of reoffending if released from prison, and he was released after he had already assaulted a child. Okay? The sentence he had received prior to Sarah Payne's murder, he had served half of his sentence before he was let out. After the murder of Sarah Payne, he received 50 years. That is not justice. Madeleine Soto. She was murdered by her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. At the age of 13, she was murdered right after her 13th birthday. Stephen Stearns had been assaulting Madeleine from the age of 8 until she was 13. Her mother claims she knew nothing about this, but in that time period, there's no way that you don't know something is happening to your child. I'm a parent myself, and I certainly wouldn't let some strange man that had been in and out of a relationship with sleep with my daughter by themselves. Just wouldn't happen, period. He received life in prison. That is not justice. Carly Bruca, Rebecca Baptiste, Tia Sharp, Madeleine Soto. These 5 children will never get justice for what has been done to them. While their murderers sit on death row for decades and nothing ever happens, or they die naturally in prison, they take a deal because it's a violation of their human rights. Can someone tell me in the comments section down below, where was Carly, Rebecca, Tia, Sarah, or Madeleine's human rights when they were murdered? I mean, it may piss you off and you might not like the take on this, but how can we sit there and claim that it's a violation of human rights when atrocities like this are committed against our most vulnerable? There are some people that you cannot rehabilitate. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow for some of us, but I think that we need to reinstate the death penalty in the states that have overturned it. I don't think for certain prisoners life should be an option. I think death should be the only option. You should get 30 days to say your goodbyes, get your affairs in order, and if your loved ones want to come say goodbye to you, that should be their choice after the heinous crimes that were committed. I do not think that these prisoners should be given free medical. I do not think we should be paying for their roof over their head and 3 hots and a cot. I don't think they deserve that. They deserve to die for what they have done. And maybe that's not the Christian thing to do. Maybe I'm going to go to hell for saying that. But I also don't believe that this is justice. I believe that our system is broken, and I think something needs to be done about it. Because while there are certain prisoners, yes, that they committed something minor, or they have done something stupid in their life and they ended up having to serve out a sentence for something that they can't change. But there are certain people that can be rehabilitated, and there are people that cannot. There is a difference. And I think it warrants a wider conversation that needs to be had. So tell me in the comments section down below. Let's talk about it.